Radio Week 2026.
Smart ideas for radio and audio operators.
Audio has become one of the most trusted and fastest growing formats in media. But producing high quality audio at scale is still hard. It's time consuming, and it's difficult to integrate into everyday editorial workflows. At the same time, AI is changing how content is created. But for broadcasters, publishers, and content teams, speed alone isn't enough. Trust matters. Sound identity matters. Editorial standards still matter. Captioncast was built to bridge that gap. We turn written content into studio-quality audio, designed for real listeners and real brands. Not generic text-to-speech, but audio that respects tone, pacing, and context. Using AI-assisted scripting, professional-grade voices, and sound design, Captioncast makes it possible to experiment with new audio formats, without recording booths, without complex editing, without losing editorial control. Humans remain in the loop. Quality comes first. Brand voice is protected. Captioncast is currently co-developed with early partners across broadcasting and publishing, exploring how AI-first audio production can scale responsibly and sustainably. Because the future of audio isn't just faster, it's trusted.
Welcome to, yes, I am on. Welcome to Radio Week Day 4. Thanks for joining us from wherever you are in the world. We saw tons of registrations for this particular one brought to you by Captioncast. And there's a good reason for it, because nobody knows what Captioncast is yet. And that's what's so exciting about this particular webinar, is you're going to learn about a technology that's very early in terms of being introduced to the market. Obviously, the people behind it, that's Detlef Visser. He's right here. He's the inventor. He's done lots of inventions. If you put his name into AI, you'll find some amazing stuff, but you won't find anything about this particular invention. So wonderful that you're here to hear all about it today. I'm going to get everybody to introduce themselves in a little while, but what I want you to do, those of you that are watching, please feel free to click on comments, say hi, tell us where you're from, because it's really good for us to know that you're listening from all over the world. That's number one. The second thing you have a very important responsibility around is sending us your questions. So feel free, again, using that comments tab, to send any questions that you have around this and about this technology while you're hearing from our experts about it, because there might be specific things you want to know. I'm sure there are. And the only way we'll know what you want to know is if you tell us. And we encourage you to do that throughout the session. So again, brilliant to have all of you here. This is day 4 of RedTech's Radio Week, and let's start with the introductions. First, Isabel Visser. I think you're probably related to the other Visser, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm the daughter, just to be clear. Yeah, perfect. So hi, everybody. I'm Isabel. I'm leading product and go-to-market at Captioncast. And my work actually sits at the intersection of editorial content, brand voice, and also AI audio workflows. So as we have been developing these audio workflows, my focus has been on a very practical question that broadcasters are dealing with right now. How do you scale output without losing tone, trust, and editorial responsibility? So I'm also here to show a few practical use cases and learnings from what works, what still needs some work, and how you can take a first step into implementing these technologies into your radio station.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. You've already seen how many people from all over the world. We're flashing them up. Rotterdam, Lagos, Nigeria, Durban, South Africa, Johannesburg. It's brilliant. Let's start with you. Let's go on to you, Valentino. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the invitation. Glad to meet all of the people around the world right now. I'm speaking from Rome, and I'm actually a technologist. So my focus are emerging technologies and how these technologies can be used for business, for impact, also, of course, responsibly. I'm professor at the Rome Business School and also program director of the International Master in Artificial Intelligence. And today we are going to talk a little bit about how AI is reshaping actually the audio scene. My another focus is also digital ethics and digital privacy, especially in the European ecosystem. So all of the topics that we are going to discuss are the intersection of this opportunity and, of course, some criticalities to take into consideration.
Thank you, Valentino. Quentin Howard. And you're muted.
It's always the way, isn't it? Hello.
You did that on purpose. You wanted a caption
I know.
cast to caption you, right?
Of course. Good afternoon. I've spent 50 years nearly in radio watching the arrival of the next big thing, which has been the disruptor. I mean, do you remember Buggles' video Killed the Radio Star, started MTV? What happened to MTV? I think radio survived. So we've lived through digitization, DAB, networking, podcasting, the arrival of all these new disruptors, and the successful broadcasters have embraced them. And that's what we're here to do today. We're not here to kill the existing craft of radio. We're here to enhance it and then to industrialize the mundane. I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic, Quentin. Thank you. And Detlef is the founder of Captioncast as well as Ferncast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go straight into the discussion.
Sure.
Detlef.
Thanks, Omar. Yeah, I'm passionate about audio since my childhood, playing instruments, composing songs, then moving into my studies, doing research a lot in different areas of mainly audio communication, immersive audio. And so now with this break during the last years in machine learning and AI, due to the availability of so much high computational power, there's so many opportunities, pros and cons. It's always both sides, and so this is the result of one idea. Actually, I need to say that this idea came up actually during the RedTech Summit last year, and on the travel back with my wife, we discussed a lot about this, and so that was at least was the start. So I didn't want to miss to mention that.
Oh, that's very kind of you to mention something. Have you there again this year in June? Thank you for that little plug, Detlef. We didn't even pay you for it. So now with AI and so many radio stations using AI in multiple ways to try and create efficiency, sometimes to replace people, sometimes to enhance content, there's an issue that arises among broadcasters. And this issue is about sameness. If everyone uses AI-driven audio productions, how do different radio brands stay distinct? Because that's one of the issues that's going to be quite pressing for people. What do you think, Detlef?
Well, I think if we look today without AI, or we look into the past without AI, of course, radio stations were able to make a difference, and there is the possibility that they stay distinct. The question could also be other around: why should AI make this different? And I think what we probably have learned, and I guess also in the audience, tied to everybody from so many areas of the world, probably a lot of people in the audience are aware what are the possibilities and the potential to use AI. It's also the question, how do we linguistically tell AI the task? And I think, well, let's say if I ask for a summary of something without any additional comment to an AI, I may get similar summaries from the AI, from an LLM. If I be more specific and say, well, meet this tone or that tone, I get probably different summaries. And if I give, let's say, a sample of my own style, of my own linguistic style, writing style, then I may get something which is coming close to me. It's probably similar like when you ask a friend for an opinion, you are pretty sure your friend has a character, and when you ask this friend, you get an answer matching his character, his personality. When I ask AI, then the AI has no character, has any character, because it has been learning things from everybody and from so many millions of hours of content. So I have to be probably very specific. And coming back to your question, radio stations. I mean, what do they need to distinct? I mean, they need to be their own brand. They need to have their own tone, their voice, their editorial content, maybe their position also, depending what radio station it is. So when they go in the next step now, and of course lots and some have already, with AI, then I think it's important that they do not go with AI very generic but very specific, and then they take their character, their radio station tone, and put this also in the tasks they bring to the AI, and then hopefully they get what they want. And if they don't get what they want, I think they have to rearrange their question, they have to rearrange their task, so that the master keeps the person, the human being, and the result is evaluated by human beings, so that the radio station can stay. And the positive thing I see, and probably I see with technology quite often more the positive things, that's what is driving me all the decades, is that AI can give you creative ideas in the direction where you are, where you move. So if your radio station is a news station, hopefully you ask questions and get tasks to the AI, which gives you more inspiration for this news station. And if it's a hip hop station, hopefully you get it more like this. And it's our task, the task of human beings, to keep it under control and to keep it in shape. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to remind everybody that's watching, there are a couple of things we're going to go through here. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about how Captioncast makes your life. If you're a producer, if you're working in audio, it's going to make it much easier. It's going to help you do much more. This is not about replacing humans. This is about enhancing what is possible. So that's a really important point to make. The other thing was we're going to show you through this, not only how you can scale content, because you're up against hyperscalers, the Googles, the Facebooks, et cetera, and you have got to increase your content output. We're also going to show you how that's going to be monetized. So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up. But again, feel free to send your questions through. Isabel, there's a case study that will, I think, illustrate what Detlef just spoke about, that you can have the same content, but it can sound distinctive.
Yeah, exactly. If we can just share the screen, you can see that this will be an example about station branding. So same weather in different stations. Let's see. So as we know, in many radio groups today, things like weather reports are produced once and reused across multiple stations. And usually the facts are, and the way it's spoken out is the same, but only the music bed changes. But what we are realizing is that for listeners, branding isn't just about the music, but also about voice and tone and delivery. And that's really what makes a station really recognizable and trustworthy. All right, let's go to the next one. So we can see here where we take one sentence and this is then transformed into a different delivery and tone and voicing and music. So if we start for the first one, we see a calm female voice with warm delivery.
In the afternoon, there may be a few light showers, mainly along the coast.
Perfect. And then as the second one, we would have a morning show with a more upbeat tone.
So, quick look at the weather for tomorrow. It's going to be partly cloudy with temperatures somewhere between 18 and 22 degrees. And
or if we want to keep it very close to the facts and neutral, it could also sound something like this.
Tomorrow will be partly cloudy with temperatures ranging from 18 to 22 degrees.
And yeah, I think what is important to take away is that the content doesn't change, but the sound identity does. And that even if AI would be or were to use by everybody, brands don't actually have to sound the same. So I would say that distinctiveness comes from more like human-defined voice choices and editorial positioning rather than like the tech itself.
And I know in this session, we're specifically obviously focused on English as the language or the medium of instruction, but it can be in any language, in any dialect. Exactly. Am I right about that? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Wherever in the world you are, everything's possible in whatever language, even the most obscure languages, as long as the LLM is trained in it. So let's talk about the next aspect of what is possible. Quentin, I want to bring you in. With automated audio production, why is it relevant for radio organizations today? The whole process of AI and automation. What difference does it make in people's lives?
Well, these days, you're not just a radio station, you're a content factory. You've got to be on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, mobile, FM, DAB. the audience expectations are rising. They want us to be on any platform that they have with the best kind of content for that platform. So it's no longer a sort of that'll do, we'll just recut something from the breakfast show and stick it across all the media. You need to refocus that content. As we just saw in that simple example of a weather forecast, you take one piece of content and you let the AI do the refocusing, the rebranding, but you keep that integrity of the audio quality. And it's the only way that we can close that gap, without breaking your team. It's kind of the scissor effect, on the one hand, budgets and staff are being reduced and the competition is higher. And on the other hand, we've actually got to be more pervasive. We've got to be on more platforms. So it's about automating the audio that allows your teams to go home at 6 p.m. and let the automation take care of all the difficult stuff, the tedious stuff, the stuff that somebody would give up doing and they wouldn't bother. With this system, you just set your workflow and it will take care of it for you. It'll rewrite the script. It'll regenerate the audio. It'll add the right backing track. It'll give it the right mood. So you're using AI properly and creatively and taking away the repetition and the boring stuff that people tend to slip their standards on. And then it's about scalability. We in anything we do in this business, we've got to know how we can scale it, how we can grow. And it solves the problem of reversioning your content for different platforms, for different locales, for different languages, repurposing, as we just saw there, for different audience demographics. And that means you can scale everything without breaking the bank.
Yeah. I think that's for those of you who are running sort of FM networks, maybe in countries that haven't evolved to the state where you've got significant DAB plus deployment. You don't have multiple hundreds of channels online, all of which is possible today. If you think about the human resources required, it will, as Quentin's just said, totally break your budget. But when you get to that point where you've got 10, 12 other channels, each segmented very tightly around a particular audience, you are going to need this kind of technology so you can manage efficiently, because your shareholders, if you're in a commercial operation, are certainly not going to pay for 10 other people to man shows and do weather reports and so on. So I think that's where that's coming from, Quentin. Is that pretty much?
Yeah, it's scalability. Scalability means lots of things. You want to grow, you might grow by acquisition, or you just want to be on lots of different platforms. You've got the talent. You've put a lot of effort into creating the breakfast show and making that the best it can possibly be. Now you can make every variation of that the best it can possibly be without employing loads more people to do it. And I think that's the magic. That's the secret sauce here.
Isabel, have you got a demo for us on this?
Yeah, exactly. I think this ties in really well into the next example of using content that you already have and then turning that into, reusing that into something new. So can you see my screen here? Okay, perfect. So this would be when news moves faster than production can. And in this scenario, stations produce multiple news updates and reports throughout the day. And sometimes when it's on air, the content is not often reused. Sometimes it is, but maybe there's more potential. So then there's the idea of repurposing it. Second. So here we would start with the content of the radio station, let's say different news updates. Obviously, the audio already exists, so you would then have to transcribe it into text, and then it will be then editorially summarized. And then we can actually have an automated audio update, which can also have a specific tone and voicing. And let's just have a little look in it.
This is the Dayline Briefing, your concise overview of the key developments of the day.
We begin with the main headlines.
Today's summary includes a rise in respiratory infections, shortages of essential medications, and new recommendations aimed at supporting everyday well-being.
And this example really shows how it can be scalable as well, because you're already bringing out the radio updates. So this is already accessible, and through the technology, you can automatically access the audio, transcribe it, and then turn it into this. So if you would want an audio update daily or weekly, any frequency that you want, that is something that it could do without putting any pressure on the teams, really.
Right. And again, for those of you that are watching, I'm sure you're getting a lot of interesting information about this new Captioncast system. But if there are questions that are rising, please feel free. Tap into the comments, send them through, and we'll ask the experts. Isabel, I want to ask you, so how does AI support the listener experience, improving it vastly? I think we've spoken a little bit about it, but things get complicated. There's, for example, if you're talking about a viral outbreak, you want to make sure, again, I think Detlef spoke about it early on, you want tone of voice to be very different than a high energy morning show person talking about something serious happening. So how is the listener experience improved through AI supported audio?
Yeah, that's a great question, how it improves the listener experience. So I would say that the audio improves this experience in 3 practical ways. And it's not really about producing any more content. So I think one level would be the emotional and linguistic content. I think that audio is easier to listen when tone and pacing and language actually fit the topic in the audience. Like you just said, if there's a very sensitive topic or a specific audience, you want to have that in alignment. And instead of just reading text out loud, delivery could be calm or conversational or explanatory, depending on what makes sense. Then I think, secondly, adaptation to listening situations. So I think a lot of high quality audio content is actually missed because people can't listen live. So maybe even having an on-demand version or a version that is repurposed for a later time for audience that might listen rather in the morning or in the afternoon, and then adapted to their listening style, could fit their needs and also their listening experience more. And then third point, I would say maybe also to the audience's level of knowledge. If we maybe have a very complex topic to talk about that might be very informationally dense, maybe it wouldn't suit a certain target audience and rather a different one. So changing that would also reduce cognitive effort, and all of that would try to make it more engaging.
Right. And one of the things we said fairly early on is this is not about replacing humans. Valentina, I want to bring you in here. Humans need to be in the loop because AI doesn't necessarily and won't be able to function entirely autonomously. Maybe there will come a time when it does, but tell me why humans are necessary. And I hope they are, because I don't want to be out of a job.
That's definitely, and reconnecting also what Isabel was saying before. You are especially, I'm not working in the radio industry, but as a consumer, I'm listening radio also via internet, for example, at a global level, because I want to really listen a content that is resonating with me, and the content that is able to generate some feelings, of course. And AI is a great tool to potentially automate some of the steps. We were discussing this before. But humans, because they are generating content for humans, not for machines, so there are expectations, higher expectations. We need to become architects, I would say, of the context and the intent. So what does it mean? Generally speaking, when we are using artificial intelligence, we provide a context at the beginning, a knowledge base. And we can choose, we can select what do we want to provide AI to potentially automate. This choice makes the difference across several radio stations, across several content creators. The choice is very human, because this is how the creator is expressing himself or herself, and this is what is generating the impact in the final people. And even if AI generates something at the end, still the intent needs to be adapted to the audience. We were talking about the tone, we were talking about cultural sensitivity, emotional sensitivity. And I would say, just because something is said, it doesn't mean that you need to use a set tone or a serious tone. This is probably the interesting fact of being human. No, you can even say something sad in a little bit happy vibes, because maybe you know what is the audience. You want to build the capability to overcome that sadness. No, this is something that the machine is not able to understand. But there was an interesting article by the Financial Times saying that all of the activities that are easy to describe, they are linear, their AI can replace humans. But if you're talking about things that are messy, things that are full of nuances, details, something very cultural and something very emotional, that is exactly where AI cannot replace humans today. So you need the human in the loop, but for that, you need to map the process that you are executing every day. And this is a matter of being a professional in the field. Only a professional knows and control the workflow. And you need to identify what are the activities that can be automated by AI and where humans needs to decide. Decision is what makes us humans. Repetition is what is part of artificial intelligence. I think that we can work together very creatively, but we just need to understand what is the responsibility of each. And the humans in the loop, especially when we are talking about content that is delivered to humans, is extremely important.
I want to remind everybody that's watching, thank you, Valentino. I want to remind everybody that's watching, we are going to get to questions around making more money, because obviously that's important. So we are going to get to how this helps you generate revenue, but we are also going to talk about how this makes your life easier and creates greater efficiency. So all of that is still to come. There's a question, Gareth Cherry, and I'm just going to flash that on screen for all of you. And you can decide who's best to take it. When it comes to AI voice and speech systems, are there vocal voices available for different languages and regional accents? This was something we spoke about a little earlier. I ask this because I've been working extensively with AI, and many of the voice experiences don't really cater for our South African market. Obviously, there's a distinctive accent in South Africa. We have distinctive accents and linguistic nuances. So I'm interested to know whether there are plans to develop more country-specific or region-specific voices and accents globally, particularly for markets like ours. Detlef, do you want to have a go at that?
Sure, of course. I mean, even in this short time of working with Captioncast, it's not much more than half a year. We have experienced several updates from text-to-speech systems. We have been working with so many different ones, and it's incredible how fast the development is and how the improvement is. So I would say that at least 2 times they have been improved with a very, very big step. And something which we cannot imagine maybe today may come in 2, 3, or 4 months. So I would not definitely say that today all languages and all accents, definitely no. And our task and responsibility at Captioncast, for instance, is that we only release languages where we have trust, where we say, because there is a very important thing which we have not touched yet, is also the question of how many errors can be, how many failures can be in an AI-produced area. So we have to introduce control of AI, and if we want to do it smart, then we have another AI controlling the AI, and there are lots of different technologies doing this, so that at the end, you get a really, really good output. And I'm fully also with Valentino, because I think there was this question, but also Valentino said a lot about the response. There is this high responsibility of human beings. On the other hand, there is this opportunity to, with the right skills, and we need more people with linguistic skills, for instance, because we need people who talk with AI to get the best out of it. So for instance, you have this station where, and when I'm in the car, I listen quite often to stations, sometimes they repeat things. But there is, when I drive in the morning and arrive back in the evening, maybe I hear the same thing. There is no need, because maybe there's another audience. So change it and change the tone. And if, let's say, certain things are not yet working, they may work in 2, 3 months. And that's what we learned. So our job at Captioncast, and I think at lots of other companies dealing with AI, is keeping up to date and keeping the technology as far as we can under control for human beings. So for, I think, the question, like asking this question, the answer is if a certain accent or dialect is not there yet, yeah, I think it will come, most likely. And we can train. Just one more thing, we can also, of course, we can also train AI by ourselves. We can create a station voice. We don't have to rely on voices which are there. So that's something on top we can do. And if there is a need, I have talked with lots of people who have experience with this. They are very happy. It's a long process. It's an empirical process. And lots of things you cannot read in a book. It's not there. For instance, like Isabel, me, and our team, we have learned empirically in the last month so many things. That's know-how we build, and probably others do the same when they do other jobs with AI as well. And so it's an extremely exciting time.
I want to just emphasize, Gareth, that even as RedTech, we're researching all the time for our different articles, our newsletters, and our magazines. By the way, the January-February issue is now out. Make sure you subscribe and get to have a look at it. These farms, these companies are harvesting voices, accents, regional dialects extensively now around the world. So it's not going to be too long before you're going to get a very authentic South African accent. You're not going to be able to make out the difference between Rassie Erasmus saying something and an AI version of Rassie. That's for rugby, obviously, because there's so many South Africans here. I'm just one of the greatest rugby coaches in the world. I had to mention him. But yeah, you won't know the difference. And that is happening as we speak.
May I add just one point?
Across the world. Sorry, say that again.
Omar, may I add just one point about this, because there is we are talking about using the accents for the communication in a radio station, but there is a very useful byproduct of this, because by sampling the voices, the languages, and the dialects across the world, the model is going to embed a language, and this is a way to preserve the language, especially the languages that are part of minorities, the languages that are part of far away countries around the world. There are many research projects that are working exactly in this direction, sampling their languages to preserve the languages for the future. So even just by working for business, there is a byproduct that is cultural with a social impact.
That's correct, because some languages are disappearing. Exactly right. So thank you for that point, Valentino. Quinton, I want to bring you in. So you're working in radio, in a commercial radio operation, so you will know what AI audio cases, what's production ready already now, today, what's still evolving. Can you give us an insight into that?
Yes, I think, like many people working in radio, we've all had to play with our AI and found very quickly its limitations. There are a number of radio stations in the UK and elsewhere in the world who are using it very successfully for things like weather. There was even a company a friend of mine runs who just makes the weather with AI, and that's his sole product, and it's terrific. There are other radio stations who are reading news bulletins with AI, but both of those are very straightforward voices. There's not a great deal of nuance in them. 3 or 4 years ago, I experimented with trying to reproduce a well-known radio presenter who's no longer with us, but with permission of his family, we were going to reproduce his voice for one of our stations. And it was really difficult, because what I realized quickly was that a DJ talent doesn't just have one voice. It varies between links. It varies within a link, and you cannot distill this into a single thing. I ended up working out that you probably needed 7 different voices, and then that creates a whole issue about how you schedule which voice you pick, even though it's the same person. But there is plenty of content that's production ready now, and I think it's the utility first rule. It's the low-hanging fruit. It's the weather, it's the news explainers, it's the traffic updates. It's they're all data-driven content. It's service information, straightforward to manage, very easily to build into a Captioncast workflow. Low risk editorially. The editorial risk is an important thing, which is why people are wary about doing it with news. Advertising, making commercials, they're all relatively straightforward. Time shifted content, that's a low risk. You've got loads of content, you could time shift now. And I think in terms of what we have to do as production people is look at the low hanging fruit, get familiar with that, give our production people these tools and say, have a go with this, get them familiar and excited with it. And then you'll find that the experimentation will begin and people will start to be more creative and work out the nuances to create that really hyper content. But there is much more what I call the low hanging fruit than you'd think. So turn a linear interview into something searchable, turn it into a different accent, turn it into a regional language, you can do that today.
Turn it into a dialogue. I mean, you have maybe a single person talking about a topic, turn it into a dialogue or into a conversation. And there are quite some challenges, but we have made, well, I would say more than experiments in the last month, for instance, for dialogue and more conversations. And it's pretty exciting if you invest time in research and in experiments that you can get quite good and very good results here.
Yeah. And it's better and faster than a bored presenter being told read 25 scripts. So
yeah. That's one thing. And the other thing is also maybe you have something which is a complicated topic. Yeah, maybe something about climate change. But then you have an audience which is maybe very young. You have maybe children also listening to something like this, and you have but the facts in the original content, the original production are extremely good. So make them also understandable maybe for children. So I think as well you have also an example on this, right?
Yeah, actually it's a perfect transition. If we just share the screen again. We can see, like Detlef said before, with high information density, a text that could be then also limitedly accessible to others. So here, this would be a paragraph just on thermal insulation, very wordy. Let's just have a look.
Thermal insulation significantly reduces heat transfer through the building envelope by minimizing transmission losses across walls, roofs, and facades. This leads to lower energy demand for space heating, reduced CO2 emissions, and increased efficiency in meeting national climate protection targets.
Okay, yeah, maybe pretty complicated for some. Let's see in the next slide, where we can also identify potential for reuse. So as Detlef already said, a dialogue format could be the case, just making it a little bit more dynamic and alive.
So, why does insulation actually matter so much for the climate?
Good question. Basically, insulation keeps heat inside buildings, through the walls, the roof, all of that. And when less heat escapes, we need less energy for heating, which means lower CO2 emissions.
Exactly. And then in the second one, this would be more a child-friendly explanation.
Think of your house like wearing a warm jacket. Insulation keeps the heat inside, so we use less energy, and that helps the planet.
And then finally, just the on-demand educational format.
Insulating buildings helps reduce heat loss. That means less energy is needed for heating, lowering emissions and supporting climate protection.
Yeah, so I think key takeaway is pretty simple. You heard like the same facts, but then just a different audience, and then a restructuring of the text and tonality of things, which allows reaching a broader audience and still like reducing editorial risk.
You know, that first voice that you played reminded me of when I was in my 20s and a DJ, always in that up-tempo, ultra-excited tone. Cool. Valentino, humans, we keep talking about this. This is not meant to supplant human innovation, people in studios and so on. What jobs do you think are most likely to be affected? So we're saying that some things are going to have to be retrained. This is when we had the Industrial Revolution, it took care of certain mundane tasks. Machines took them over, but it didn't mean humans weren't involved anymore. Now, how will this work in the AI age? What sort of stuff will perhaps become redundant, and what new opportunities will emerge? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is an impact that is interesting every field, every sector in the job market. There is a big shift. Traditionally, we are, let's say simply, we are paid for executing something. We are paid for building something. We are paid to do things, to execute the tasks. Today, in the age of artificial intelligence, we are not talking actually only about automation, but we are also talking about autonomy. We are becoming manufacturers of autonomy. Quentin wrote in the chat before, once you set up the workflow, you can scale that workflow. You don't need to recreate again and again and again, for example, the script. This is a shift because you are changing the focus. Before, we were focused on the execution. Now we plan what needs to be executed, and the execution is automated at scale. So what does it mean? That the jobs are going to be less executed modes, and they're going to be more like curators, for example, of the content. We are going to see a lot of content creators today becoming content planners. You need to design what do you want. You need to understand what is the intent, once again. You need to clarify exactly what do you want to achieve. And we are going to spend more time to design, to plan, to build the logic, for example, of the voice, to build a workflow, so that we spend this time once, and after that, we can deploy this in Chinese, we can deploy this in English, we can deploy that in Italian, in German, so we can really scale without losing so much time, we can say, investing the time in the execution. AI is our tool to fight against the time. And we are actually going to fight by the fact that the execution does not depend on the specific team, does not depend on the specific location. So jobs will be more strategic, will be more planning oriented, will be more design oriented. The execution, of course, everything that is repetitive, everything that is like doing the things, especially when it is linear, there's risks, as it is normal, to be replaced by AI. But once again, we don't need to think that we are replaced by AI. We are just repositioning ourselves within the company. So AI can be useful to amplify what we are doing, and not necessarily to replace us. But we just need to understand that reskilling and repositioning is our strategy to stay relevant also in the job market. And this really applies to anybody.
So just again, to remind everybody, we've got lots of people watching from all over the world: Mexico, Brazil, Denmark, South Africa. But only Gareth Cherry keeps asking questions. So is Gareth the human or is Gareth the AI? I don't know. Let's go to this particular question that's come through from Gareth. With AI tools now making it easy to create high quality radio jingles and bed music, often without paying traditional royalties, I'm interested whether the audio industry will be looking at tightening regulations around AI-generated music, or is this space likely to remain largely untouched for now? This is a big issue of controversy, actually. Do you have an understanding of this? Any one of you? Maybe start with you, Detlef, because you're a musician as well. So
yeah, it's a very, very complicated question, and probably it's also handled globally in different directions. So of course I have an opinion about this. This I can of course share, but the result, how it will be regulated, or which things are regulated, I don't know. I mean, we look into the AI Act in Europe. There are definitely regulations, but they don't apply in other continents. So with this audience we have, which is very spread around the globe, it doesn't make much sense to maybe talk about the AI Act. In terms of music, I think that, of course, people who compose and own rights would be good if they get remunerated and get also compensated. But how this all will move into the future, I have no idea.
Does anybody else have one venture?
There's a parallel conversation going on about AI cloned voices and actors' voices being used. And that's playing out in real time now. I would imagine that will become a licensing. Actors will license their voices in just the way that musicians have licensed music. The difference here is that we're creating music that nobody's created before. It may be the same 7 notes, just in a different order, but it's not somebody's original music. I'm looking forward to the first time there is a court case for AI copying somebody else's real music, and see how the judges work that out. We remember George Harrison and and that court case. Well, that'll happen in AI, I'm sure.
Of course. So we want to get to, I just thought that we should mention that Diane McPherson is also watching, and she said Gareth already asked one of the questions I wanted to ask, so he's not the only one listening and wanting to ask stuff. Thank you, Diane, for making that clear to us. Let's go to this issue about saving money and generating new revenue. That's really important. Stations all over the world are facing a hell of a lot of top-line pressure. We know they've also got profitability issues. So if this kind of technology can help, firstly, save money, secondly, help generate new revenue for radio stations, then it's always going to take off. And that's what matters to the boards and management in multiple radio stations around the world. Maybe between you, Detlef, and Quinton, because you're involved in operations. Tell us how this is going to happen. Where are the opportunities for saving? Where are the opportunities for new revenue?
Yeah, I think maybe oh, sorry, Quentin, go ahead.
No, after you, please.
Okay. No, maybe just going back to this example we had before from Isabel. I mean, there was no rewriting of the script at all. I mean, that was going fully automatic. So there are in Captioncast, there are templates, and you can select between a variety of templates to meet your mood of the radio station, the tone of the radio station. So that's all full automatic, and that of course will save time and money. Cost will not increase with more content. They can stay, so people can use this and can. You had examples before about maybe a very small radio station, and the very small radio station can create more content and can get also probably a bigger audience with more engagement if they also reach other target groups. That's the other possibility.
I sort of divide it into 4 little chunks. One is creating more micro content, as we've talked about, and variations, hyper-local news, niche advertising, the ability to create multiple sponsorship messages for different platforms, which previously was just hard to do. With Captioncast, it's easy. There's a content life cycle. Typically with the radio, content dies as soon as it's been broadcast. That's it. But actually, with this, AI allows you to extend the life cycle by automatically repurposing content from some part of the day. And as we've seen with rewriting it or putting in different languages or different voices, different platforms, you can monetize that, produce it once and repurpose it many times. In radio, there's a traditional long tail of advertising. Overnight advertising was nearly always given away because it's never sold as part of the main package. Now we can generate meaningful content, which we can put in overnights and start to find ways of monetizing that. The production cost doesn't outweigh the revenue anymore. The thing I think for CEOs, though, watching is this gives you a way of controlling and having predictable costs of production. Previously, you'd enter into some production and the creatives would go away and they'd write the copy, they'd record the voice and re-record and then reversion it. It goes backwards and forwards to the client. Here, you know what the costs are going to be when you have any piece of creativity. You can contain the costs, and I think that's good for balance sheets. It's good for CEOs, and it allows you to focus on the creativity, not the process.
Now, those of you who are watching and listening, you might have some really great ideas about new revenue streams that are possible as a result of what you've watched so far today. Feel free again to pop that in, because I think it's great if we all share ideas that you're thinking about right now. Gustav has sent a question through. Let me just get that onto screen for you. How do we integrate AI with voice recognition software so that it can mimic a voice or voiceover artist for jingles or radio adverts? Do you get that question? Anybody want to handle it?
Well, as I read it, you're talking about training a voice generator, an AI voice generator on an existing voice. I think that's how I read the question. Tell me if others read it differently.
Say so, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
That's pretty straightforward. We can generate voice, and you can do it yourself with. There's various tools that you can play with now. 11 Labs is probably the most famous, where you can clone a voice. And it's amazing how, in that very short space of time, these tools have advanced to the point where I can clone a voice pretty well with maybe less than a sentence. and it can give me an acceptable cloned voice. So you build that into the workflow, and you can create workflows which will do that for you. And out at the other end, that particular voice you wanted will be the voiceover for that jingle or whatever it might be.
But then the issue is around trust. If you're cloning somebody's voice, I'm assuming, one, you got to have their permission. They've got to benefit out of that because you're now using their IP, if I can call it that. So, I mean, it's a good time to segue into this issue of trust. How can it be protected at scale? Maybe Isabel, Valentino, you guys can come in on this, because I think one of the biggest issues everybody's going to face, and we spoke about it in our discussion yesterday when we were talking about cybersecurity on RedTech Radio Week, and we were saying with AI, the fact that someone can sound like someone else and say things that that person would never say, and how do we authenticate that it is who they say it is a big issue. So this issue of trust is really critically important. Isabel, do you want to have a go first, and then we'll go to Valentino around this issue of how we make sure that trust is preserved?
Yeah, sure, I can go ahead. I think there's multiple levels. Oh, do you want to go first?
No, please.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I think there's like multiple levels. Let me try to break down a few. So I think it's more about really taking responsibility and going into the first part, which would be editorial ownership. So even if audio is generated automatically, I think there's always has to be, and I think Valentina already mentioned this before, a human who's responsible for what goes out. So not just the system. So having that little extra step, I think caters to that responsible attitude. Then maybe the second one would be consistency. So if listeners trust stations because they recognize like tone and language and values over time, AI can only support that if those values are clearly defined and enforced and not left to chance. And I think then the third part would be like transparency and accountability. So if even in radio stations right now, this can always happen, mistakes could be made. But if something goes wrong in like AI audio, has to be clear who's like accountable, and there has to also be the willingness to improve or even ask for feedback from the audience.
Valentina, do you want to continue? Is there anything you want to add to that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, there is the big topic of the watermark, basically in the metadata that, of course, can be included in the generated content with AI. This is the same problem that we can find in image generated with AI, videos with all of the problem of the deepfakes. So there is the possibility for the vendors, in this case for 11 Labs, for example, or all of these companies, to embed watermarks, metadata, and there is the work on new standards of metadata that are going to tell anybody if that kind of content is AI generated or not. But I want to add another point. This is probably connected a little bit with the previous discussion that we had about the new jobs. In the world when you can generate the content, probably people are going to look not only for that, but they are going to look also for something additional that cannot be replaced by humans. And this is just from something that I see from the market. There is in the Italian market one famous content creator talking about technology, news, and so on. He recently started to create any video. He had a very known presence on social media. He's now creating the entire video, the entire face, the entire body, the entire voice with artificial intelligence. So he's scaling his presence online. So he's saving a lot of time and cost in the creation of the content, but he's also shifting to another kind of activity, which is community management. The community management, the gathering of the people, connection of people online on some chats and private groups, this is something that AI is not going to replace immediately. So the content can be created for a lot of people so that people can consume that, but the community will grow as an importance for any content creator. And this is interesting also. Maybe we are going to live in a generation, especially Generation Alpha, that is not going to focus so much on authenticity because everything can be fake. So they are going just to consume the content, but they will look also for something real, which is community, connections, one-on-one, or some group meetings, even in reality. And this is an interesting kind of shift that is probably a reaction of us humans.
Mm. One of the things we're currently researching at RedTech is there is some work going on at the University of Phoenix in Arizona, specifically around not just watermarking audio, AI-produced audio, but actually creating a microphone that will be able to let you know whether this was actually said by Donald Trump or was it said by an AI engine, because of the microphones, some technology that's going to be embedded in microphones, which is fascinating. And we're probably going to publish that in the Innovators, which we're going to publish in a couple of months. So look out for that. But it's fascinating. There's a lot of work going in here to make sure that we don't all get fooled, because this is the problem. We're not discriminating enough. We're not critical enough about the information we receive. And so too many of us can be duped. And that is a big problem. So talking about issues like this, what's a responsible first step to when you want to move into AI-first audio production? So let's say most of the people that are watching this today, Quentin, maybe they haven't moved ahead because they're so worried about the complexity around the issues, the ethical issues. How would you start as somebody who works
I think there are two steps. First of all, I would start with what I call the sandbox approach. Start with your on-demand archive, use Captioncast to version your existing shows, let your team play, give them the tools and let them get comfortable with it. It's a sandbox. They can't do any harm, but what they will do is they'll get excited by it. And then it's evolution, not revolution. My advice to a CEO watching this is don't fire your morning DJ and hire a robot. That's not what this is about. Take your best morning show content and use AI to version it for a podcast, a flash briefing, a social clip. Prove that workflow first, and then you'll be ready to drive. There are editorial guide rails, of course, on this. So the first step isn't actually technical; it's editorial. You've got to define as a CEO where your human sign-off begins and ends. AI is like an intern. They don't cost much, but they're not very good at making decisions. So you have to treat them like that, and then they will learn, but you will learn how to manage your intern as well. You still need an editor to check the output before it hits the transmitter.
It's very good. Well done, Quentin, on those brilliant examples. Let's go through a couple of other questions coming in from Ash Poon. There's a lot of conversation around disclosure when a content creator uses Gen AI and things like video, articles, etc., so that it can build trust, credibility with the audience. How are audio platforms like radio stations able to disclose without taking up too much airtime on that? Is there a standard emerging on how to tag audio that was created with AI? Very good question. Anybody want to take that?
Well, we sort of touched on it a moment ago with watermarking and all of those sorts of things. I think this is the tough question for radio stations, because a radio station exists on trust. It's people trust radio stations much more than they trust any other media. Excuse me, that's my dog making a noise. And we mustn't lose that trust. And I think there's a difficulty we haven't really addressed yet. Hang on, that is my dog. Carry on, I'm just going to let him out.
Okay, we'll wait for you.
Now mine is waking up because it hears that. Okay.
This is
the best watermark.
Yeah, that's right. That's what tells you this is real. This isn't pre-recorded. This is live, and it's real human beings. Carry on.
Just to finish that example off. One of the stations I work with, Boom Radio, we created a rock station, and the voice of the rock station, the one that is the sound of the station, is a well-known British presenter who died 20 years ago. We recreated his voice with the permission, of course, of his family, who loved the idea, and we tell our audience that this, when we need to, we don't say it all the time. We just let them know that this is an AI voice. It's pretty obvious to anybody because clearly that presenter couldn't identify the station 20 years ago. But it is, I think it is the fundamental question about how we reveal that it's AI. I think it'll come when the audience are confident with AI. At the moment, I think they are frightened by it because AI is presented in the news as being something that's going to replace everything, take over our lives. It isn't. AI is just, as I said, it's just an intern. You know, they know lots of things, but they don't quite know how to do it all.
We asked for some tips, by the way. Earlier on, we said if somebody watching this has some ideas about how you can use AI to create money, but create revenue sources, Gustav sent an idea that everybody can have a look at while we carry on our discussion. So that's interesting, using events and understanding what else is happening in the local area. I want to throw the next question to you, though, Detlef. So let's imagine a future, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even sooner, where many radio broadcasters are now using AI technologies significantly at their radio stations. How will that affect audiences' expectations around what to get from their audio brands as these AI voice formats become more common? What are we going to see? What are audiences going to start to expect and want and demand?
Yeah, I think if we look just in a very near future, then probably things will evolve at the radio stations. There will be more content, also AI-produced content, hopefully with a responsibility, people in charge, that authenticity is guaranteed, probably very important. If we look into a more longer future, that's interesting because, I mean, when we look very much back, I'm a science fiction movie fan, and when I look, some areas are going into truth, some not. So Moon, Mars became reality, warp speed did not. And video communication got into reality, but human being transport not. When I look to voices and authenticity, Siri, Alexa, they have been done for a broader audience. I believe that in the far future, probably we get our assistants which are available. They talk in a language and in a voice we like, if every individual likes, maybe adapted to our mood, adapted to our education, maybe also taking an opposite position if we want this at this moment. So not always talking friendly to us, maybe also having a discussion. And for the radio station, I think the expectation is probably that they keep their radio brand, that they keep their station identity, although getting broader with content. If they don't, there will be inflation. It will be all very much the same. So I think keeping the identity probably could be an expectation.
Brilliant. Isabel, I think this one's for you. Diane asks, do you perhaps have an example of a website using Captioncast so we can see it in a real news environment, how it works? Do you have some of that? Do you have a place that she can go to, not just her, but maybe others are thinking the same thing?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a website, of course, that you can access. It's captioncast.media. And at the moment, we're actually working with different clients to develop this. So I think once we get those success stories out in the open, you'll be the first ones to hear about it. And you can also sign up for a newsletter to hear how that's being put into action.
Very good. Sorry, go ahead, Detlef.
No, I just wanted to add that probably very soon we also finish the customer journey so that people can play even without being customers, and create and play with their own content and variations. So I'm not sure, Isabel, do you know the roadmap when this is supposed to come out, roughly?
Yeah, around 2 weeks. So the idea is that you can already create a free account, and then you can go on our application and then play around with how you want your audio format to be, and then how this could be implemented into your workflows. So yeah, around, give or take, 2.5 weeks. Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you so much, everyone, for your contributions today. I'm talking particularly to the audience. Thanks for tuning in, watching us, learning from Captioncast team, and Valentino, of course, and Quentin, who works in the industry, giving us some really fascinating insights about where this particular opportunity is heading. The truth is, you shouldn't be putting your head in the sand. You really need to understand what this technology creates in terms of opportunities, both for improved workflows, for greater efficiency, and of course, new revenue opportunities. We don't have all the answers yet because it's an emerging area. And perhaps a year from now, when we have Detlef and Isabel and this team again at a Radio Week webinar, there'll be an entire new plethora of opportunities that have emerged because this technology is constantly evolving. So it's great that you're here to be at what is really, I don't think it's the bleeding edge yet. Well, it's not the bleeding edge, but this is new. And we're just learning how we can use it and improve our own work functions and so on. Do you want to have any last comments before I do the final goodbyes? Anyone? Valentino, Detlef, Quentin, Isabel? Or are you happy that you've said
I would just comment from a user point of view. Having used Detlef's systems in the past, Extreme and so on, and Captioncast, what I find really appealing about it is that you've got people behind it who understand audio, who understand authenticity. You know, they're musicians, they're broadcasters, they're tonmeisters, and that makes a difference. It's not just a tech product. This is a product that's focused at radio, and the tools that put it together have been really understood, so that people like me can just drag and drop things on a screen, and that's the workflow done. I don't have to write any code. I don't have to make it complicated. Detlef and Isabel do all that behind the scenes. I just click and play. And that's what I think differentiates this.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Just a couple of quick notes for all of you that are watching. World Radio Day 2026 is coming up mid-February. It's coordinated by RedTech. Please register and unlock a whole lot of offers and benefits. We're looking specifically for radio stations to register because there are a number of benefits, and it is actually centered around the theme of AI. World Radio Day 2026 is centered around the theme of AI. And to find out where you can register and how you can bring your radio station on board and what benefits there are, all you need to do is type in unesco.org in Google or World Radio Day, and you will certainly find it. Once again, thanks to everybody here from the Captioncast team, Detlef Visser, Isabel Visser, the people who are actually inventing the next phase of AI for audio. We really appreciate you being here. Quentin, Valentino, have a fantastic day. And thanks for joining Radio Week 2026.
Radio Week 2026.
Smart ideas for radio and audio operators.